Ngannou against La Problemo. And the GOAT of female MMA, Chris Cyborg, one loss in 18 years against her toughest test. If she wins, the greatest ever to cement her legacy. If you're an MMA fan, these are the two best co-main events you will see in 2024, and we are proud as PFL to present these.
Awesome.
Excited to take all you guys' questions, whatever you want to talk
from
about.
the national. Go ahead. National.
But for us in the Middle East, how significant is this, and how do you hope to spread this to other countries in the region?
Look, I think this is emanating from Riyadh, from Saudi Arabia. We're super proud to be partners. As you know, Surge Investment is our big investment partner, and we're partners with ministers to work to put on this event. More than that, we'll be back in 30 days for the PFL World Championship and the PFL Mid-East World Championship. We hope to continue to develop fighters and fans and make Saudi Arabia people love MMA, love the journey of the fighters. So if you're not yet a fan of MMA, come out this Saturday or watch this Saturday. This will be your new favorite sport along with soccer.
Excellent. Jack from the Sun.
Don, just here. I mean, this has been billed as sort of the lineal MMA heavyweight title fight. If Francis is to come through with this, do we need to see him fight a John Jones down the line to decide who is the number one heavyweight?
Yeah, the question about Francis and John Jones. Look, our focus is on this Saturday. This is the biggest fight in MMA in heavyweight this year. Francis, when he left UFC, was the pound for pound #1 and the heavyweight champion. Hernan Ferreira is the biggest rising star at ESPN #5 ranked. So this is the fight everybody wants to see. Whoever comes out of this fight is the #1 in the world. So whoever wants to claim the #1 spot goes through the winner of this fight, not through UFC, this fight. So whoever wants to claim that position better be calling us after Saturday, not calling them.
But we have seen in Saudi that there has been a lot of cross promotion with the boxing. The boxing promoters are coming together to make these big fights. Would you be open to doing that in the future?
Look, we've said at PFL, we want to give fans what they want. That's the best fights in the world. Francis Ngannou has said he'll take on all comers. I think John Jones wants to cement his legacy. There's only one obstacle to that fight, and we know who that is.
Jesse Holland, the legend himself.
Don, we're here in February for Champions versus Champions. Can you compare the atmosphere for this card versus the one earlier in the year, and kind of how you're feeling heading into your second show?
Look, Champs v. Champs is special because it was the first time you'd ever done 5 champions against 5 champions. But that doesn't compare to what we're seeing in this atmosphere. Francis is not just a special fighter, he's a special human being. Everyone knows his story just to start his life, and everybody knows how real and authentic he is. To see him back after 2.5 years, after what he's done to even start his career in boxing, to see what he's been through personally, and to see what he's putting back on the line in the cage, you have to see that. You have to see that. So I don't think anything can compare to what we're seeing Saturday night just in the main event. And then when you go beyond that, I love this card. So I love Francis, but I love this card. I love what AJ McKee says. I have more fights and knockouts than you do, Mr. Hughes. More knockouts than you have fights. I want to see that fight. I'm more excited about that. And I said, I believe you're seeing with Cyborg and with Larissa the two most interesting fighters in MMA today on the female side. So I think there's a lot of reasons to see this card, but the atmosphere starts with the intensity of seeing the lineal heavyweight champion back in the cage and seeing him back trying to accomplish something that we know is very important to him for his legacy, for his personal truth.
Go ahead, right here.
بعد معركة العمالقة نهائي بطولة رابطة المقاتلين المحترفين الشهر القادم، كيف تسير تحضيرات PFL النهائية المنتظرة، وهل هناك من مفاجآت سيتم الكشف عنها؟
Yes.
She's asking if we'll be back in Saudi Arabia.
Yes. We will be back in Saudi Arabia. I do believe that Saudi Arabia is the fight capital of the world. I think it's due to the great work of the investment of PIF and Surge, the work of Turkey and GEA, investment of Minister of Sport. They are making this the place to fight. They are making this the place for fans. But more importantly, PFL is the one making the investments here also. You are seeing us develop fighters like Hatan, who is now a sensation and has showed women the way. We have developed the fighters. We are developing the fan base with PFL Mideast. So I think what fans should appreciate is Professional Fighters League is one living here, giving back here, developing here. We're not just bringing one fight and leaving. We live here with you. And so I think if you're a new fan, come to be a fan of Professional Fighters League. We're with you.
Thank you.
Right over here first.
Yes.
Okay, two questions, please. The first question, as you mentioned before, you lived here with us. What is the impact of making fight here in Saudi Arabia? And did you plan to make a new fight in other city than Riyadh?
Yes. The question is, we will be expanding to other fights, not just in Riyadh, but in the Mideast. For those of you who follow PFL Mideast, we've had 3 events this year, and the championship will be happening on Thanksgiving weekend. We invite you all to come back to see the finals of that event, as well as the finals of the PFL Global season. What you're starting to see is your own local heroes. The development, I believe, of MMA being your second favorite sport, I hope, over the coming years. We want to develop coaches, fighters, fans, the ecosystem. Just as Silicon Valley has an ecosystem of technology, we want an ecosystem of MMA. By the time the World Cup of Soccer is hosted here, we want Saudi Arabia to produce an MMA world champion. That's possible. And PFL Mideast and Professional Fighters League is here to make that happen. So we will be hosting fights in Dubai. We will be hosting fights in Morocco. We will be hosting fights in Nigeria. We will be spreading out in 2025. But make no mistake, our Mideast headquarters is here in Riyadh, and we are here to develop and take over the world with you and develop a Saudi Arabian champion by 2034.
Yes, sir. The main event has taken a lot of focus and a lot of media. Who on the undercard, and there's some incredible talent from the MENA region, but who on the undercard do we need to keep an eye on?
I don't ever like to play favorites or point out too much stuff. What I ask all of you is follow PFL MMA on TikTok. Leave here and follow PFL MMA on Instagram. Follow PFL MMA on Twitter. Learn the stories of these fighters. MMA fighters are the most misunderstood athletes of our time. They all come from nothing. They don't have teammates. They don't have salaries. They're trying to make a better life. You will be inspired and you will find your own favorite. So I mentioned Hatan. I met with her last night. We were able to introduce her to some of the ministers. The ministers' daughters wanted pictures with Hatan as much as Francis Ngannou. Think of that. Hatan is your own, and she's on her 2nd fight, and she's not top 200 ranked in the world. And Francis Ngannou is the #1 heavyweight champion and the greatest fighter of our time.
Thank you so much.
That's the opportunity. Go find your own favorite. Yes.
You made a huge investment in Francis, then you let him go and box. Are you a bit nervous that the Francis we'll see on Saturday is the same Francis from 3 years ago?
So the question is about, are we nervous about Francis? Maybe nervous about this outcome? No. Professional Fighters League is different from the other guys. The other guys are a promoter-driven league. They have stakes in certain fighters winning. They put a lot of investments in Sugar Shade O'Malley. They work to make sure he wins. They invest a lot of marketing, hoping he's the next Conor McGregor. And then he falls flat, and they're disappointed. That's not what Professional Fighters League is about. We're a fighter-driven league. The fighters control their destiny. If they win, they advance. If they win 4 times, they become world champion in the league season. $1 million in the belt. I don't control anything here. I don't have favorites. I root for them all. That's what makes Professional Fighters League so great. Fighter-driven versus promoter-driven. Doesn't matter who wins and loses here. To us, we root for them all and we support them all equally.
Got 2 more questions. Go ahead.
Obviously, you were changing the game in terms of promotion. You were letting the fighters do other things and giving them more freedom.
things. When it comes down to it, it's fight game. Who beats who? That's the most important part. So, if you have a hypothetical scenario, take your 3 champs against UFC's 3 champs. Which weight categories will these be?
Look, it's a great question. If I could take a step back, if you look at it, there's 650 million MMA fans in the world, and right now you only get 60 great fights a year. 40 from UFC, 20 from Professional Fighters League. Well, there's 4,000 soccer matches. So all of you should be fans of both UFC and PFL. There's only 60 great fights a year, and there's 650 million MMA fans. So it's not either or, it's 2 great companies doing very different things. Second thing, we have equal fighter talent, Professional Fighters League. Yes, the UFC's brand is bigger. We recognize that. We're the new guy. We have to work harder. We're in year 5, they're in year 30. But if push came to shove, and it was 5 fights, we picked 5, they picked 5, let me tell you, they wouldn't do that. Because we'd win half and they'd win half. We'd win half and they'd win half. And that's why Dana, #Dana scared, would never do that. He knows that, and we know that. So, but be fans of all of them. We love all fighting. We root for all fighters. Watch them both.
Last question.
Last question here. There's been a lot of talk of like your investment, Francis and Chris and everything, and what if they win, what if they lose? But on the flip side, what if Renan wins and what if Larissa wins? Like 2 PFL, like homegrown talents, and now you have like Francis might not be the draw that he is, but then you have Renan, who just became a superstar. Is it unfair that people are putting so much pressure on him and not the same amount of pressure at Renan?
Yeah, it's a great question about kind of what's so interesting here is you have 2 free agents really that chose PFL, Francis and Cyborg, and it's 2 homegrown talents in Larissa and Renan. What I love is it shows why PFL is winning today in the fighter market. We can develop stars and champions, and we can recruit stars and champions. Make no mistake, PFL is the future. Even if you look at the emerging stars, Baki, Doumbé, Dakota, Paul Hughes, they all have big offers from UFC, and they chose the Professional Fighters League because they want to bet on themselves and control their destiny. They don't want to be a prisoner to somebody else's decision. They want to control their own destiny. So if you're a superstar, you come here. If you're a young fighter, we'll develop you, like Larissa and Renan. And if you're the biggest in the world, like Chris Cyborg and Francis, you come here because we'll meet your needs. We'll pay you the money. We'll give you flexibility. So to me, win, win, win. All fighters are finding PFL the home they want to be at, and that's what this card shows.
Is there an update on Doumbé?
Doumbé will be back, and Bake is under contract. Stay tuned, France. Your fight is coming.
Thank you guys. Thank you so much.
We'll see you Saturday night, everybody.